On Independence Day in Mexico, thousands of citizens line Avenida Juarez in the heart of Mexico City in anticipation of Mexico's annual military parade. Heavily armed advance guard and police clear and secure the parade route, making it almost impenetrable. The parade commences, showcasing Mexico's military might. Men and women representing some of the country's 250,000 active duty troops and 250,000 guns. A lot of firepower, or perhaps not, when you consider, according to some estimates, this same number of weapons, 250,000 of them, are smuggled illegally into Mexico each year from the United States. Illegal firearms responsible for many of the 100,000 plus murders committed in Mexico in the last decade. And illegal firearms also in the hands of otherwise law-abiding citizens wanting simply to protect themselves with so many illegal guns on the street. In a country where it's constitutionally prohibited for most law-abiding citizens to own a gun even legally. In fact, there is only one gun store in the entire country, just an Uber call away in the center of Mexico City. I get a Volkswagen Jetta owned by Uber driver Eric.
Eric, Mike.
Hola, bienvenido, Mike.
Viva Mexico.
Viva Mexico.
We are going to a gun store, and I think it will be easy to find, Eric, because it is the only gun store in Mexico.
Pues no he escuchado hablar así como tal, porque como aquí en México casi no hay.
It's run by the military. It's on an army base, actually. It's the only place you can buy a gun, and you have to have identification, references, no criminal background, and you're only allowed to purchase one handgun or one rifle.
And sure enough, in the center of Mexico City here, we drive into this open military base and pull up right in front of Mexico's one and only gun store, what's formerly known as the Directorate of Arms and Munitions Sales. Cameras prohibited at the entrance, so we drive across the street.
De aquí. Perfecto.
Rare photos inside the store reveal what appears to be a fairly standard-looking gun shop. Only the sales reps here are soldiers in uniform, selling a very limited number of handguns or hunting rifles each year to what are said to generally be well-to-do Mexicans with connections in government, allowed to purchase small caliber handguns for personal protection in their homes or shotguns for hunting. Only 6,500 guns on average are sold legally here to individuals each year. Some say that's an impressive and responsible way of controlling who has firearms and how many in Mexico. Uber driver Eric thinks so anyway.
Es muy bueno y realmente que tengan un permiso para portar un arma. ¿Por qué? Porque si todos tuviéramos armas, sería un problema muy...
The problem is it seems like everybody does have guns. Okay, not everyone, but at least that's the overwhelming perception among most Mexicans because of so many illegal firearms crossing the border each year. For example, here a young boy in rural Mexico carries one of a number of guns his family has paid for on the black market.
Ya fue la gorda. ¿Qué vendía?
His family grows marijuana bound for the United States. They've got several guns around, some of them AR-15s. Even his mom carries an older model.
Cuidar trabajo.
Production of AR-15s began in the United States in the early 1960s. It's the semi-automatic version of the U.S. military's M16. The AR-15 common among Mexico's drug traffickers, here one in the hands of now captured drug kingpin Chapo Guzman. In the U.S., the National Rifle Association refers to the AR-15 as America's gun. It sells for about $1,000 here in the U.S. Anyone buying one can make a quick $500 on average when selling it to someone in the black market. Once inside Mexico, the AR-15 can sell for up to $5,000. 1,000 rounds of ammo for the AR-15 is about $400 in the United States, twice that here in Mexico. And perhaps even more popular than the AR-15 in Mexico is the AK-47, with a horn-like 30-round magazine. Thus, the gun is nicknamed Cuerno de Chivo, or goat horn. Many AKs here are first exported to the United States from Romania before being smuggled here. They're also now manufactured in the United States. Common US-made handguns found in Mexico range from Colt 45s to various models from Smith & Wesson and the odd Ruger Mark IV. Handguns that might go for $600 to $800 in the United States are often twice that here. And this is just the small stuff. Arsenals of weapons have been interdicted by Mexican authorities that include heavy caliber machine guns to rocket-propelled grenade launchers to bazookas. Light anti-armor rockets like this US-made Lodge rocket have also been smuggled into the country. When it comes to small arms, most here say it's no mystery where most illegal guns are coming from.
Todas las armas que hay aquí en México, mae, todas las armas tienen el sign de USA, mae. USA, pues. Es América Latina, pues. O América, los americanos allá. Los pinches gringos, pues. ¿Entiendes? Esos pinches gringos que compran armas y saben, y las venden a otra gente y agarran un billetillo. Y se ceban, pues. Y ahí están vendiendo de una, de dos, de tres, de cinco. Pues al rato tienen 40, pues. Y a esas 40 las venden un chingazo bueno de billetes, machín. Las armas valen billetes, pues. Y los gringos hacen trabajo con mexicanos vendiendo armas, pues.
U.S. gun owners collectively are said to own more than 300 million guns in the United States. While the vast majority of U.S. gun owners are not selling them to Mexicans on the black market, the fact remains that there are 300 million guns in circulation in the U.S. thanks to gun laws in the U.S., or lack thereof, say critics, that make guns so readily available here.
So I'll kind of show you some of them.
People here publicly posting YouTube videos of all the guns for sale in stores such as those inside Walmart that up until 2015 were still selling AR-15s in their stores.
I'm telling you, I love to live in America. You can go into a store, you get yourself a bottle of Coke, a pair of underwear, and a gun. Same store. That's what it's all about.
What it's all about for some unscrupulous U.S. gun buyers is making what's called a straw purchase. Buying a gun at a U.S. gun store for, say, $1,000 and then selling it for $1,500, a quick $500 profit, to a black market buyer who then transports the gun into Mexico. Straw purchases have been difficult to monitor, say U.S. government authorities. But there is a way to slow them down, according to a study called The Way of the Gun on the illegal gun flow to Mexico by 4 scholars here at the University of San Diego. One of them, Dr. Topher McDougal.
An economic geographer by training. I graduated from MIT. Basically, I was very curious in the way economies function during wars and civil unrest.
McDougal has studied gun economies around the world in some pretty unstable conflict zones.
In Sierra Leone and Liberia.
As for Mexico, McDougal believes one of the keys to breaking up the illegal flow of guns is for U.S. authorities to target straw purchasers more aggressively, particularly in U.S. border states that have the largest concentration of gun stores in the country. Some of these stores benefiting greatly from the illicit black market gun trade. For example, according to McDougal's study, U.S. gun dealers in 2012 earned $127 million from sales of guns that ended up in Mexico. Guns interdicted by authorities in Mexico and traced by their serial numbers back to U.S. gun stores. The majority of straw purchases made at gun stores on the southern U.S. border. What McDougal calls a fairly obvious clustering effect of gun stores in U.S. border towns.
Basically, what we were able to do is show that there was indeed a clustering effect. The closer that you got to the border, a very significant and strong effect of proximity to the U.S.-Mexico border that drives up this concentration of arms retailers. We're sitting right here at 15 minutes from the border. In a lot of places, you can just stick one of these in a duffel bag and throw it over a fence. And there you are, as long as you have a fixer on the other side. We've done nothing to prevent, almost nothing, to prevent guns from flowing south.
Gun stores by law in the United States must do background checks on buyers, but are not generally liable for what happens to a firearm once it leaves the store. It's why straw purchases of guns later sold to Mexico's black market have been quite successful. It's why McDougal's study recommends national gun registration in the United States.
We have been very resistant to creating, say for instance, any sort of registry, even just in border states, which would be a sensible course of action. To create a registry of purchasers, perhaps restricted to border states, since it seems that, say, 3/4 of the guns that are purchased in the U.S. are coming from border states, particularly Texas, but also Arizona, California, New Mexico. And in fact, there's a very strong push against creating any such registry on the part of U.S. citizens who feel that the next step would then be for the government to come and apprehend their arms. Personally, I think that whenever we have rights as citizens, those rights always come along with responsibilities. It's the case with driving. If you want the right to drive, you need to acknowledge that the exercise of that right may come at the expense of other people's safety and security, and so you need to pass a test, you need to get a license, you need to register your vehicle, etc., etc. I think that there's no reason inherently for small arms and light weapons to be treated any differently. My study really, I think, highlights the fact that, at least from a supply side, the U.S. is very much partially responsible for this problem. It would be hypocritical, in a sense, to blame Mexican cartels for drugs coming into this country and not then turn around and say, well, we are doing an equally poor, if not a worse job, preventing guns from flowing into Mexico, right?
The proliferation of guns in Mexican society has caused an escalation of violence and deadly shootouts involving an increasing number of armed bodyguards, many not registered to even carry guns legally. Some estimates put the number of clandestine bodyguards as high as 600,000, says veteran bodyguard Julio Cesar Garcia Marin, president of the National Society of Bodyguards in Mexico.
México es una cultura de la inseguridad, así te lo pongo. En general, el país está atravesando desde hace 2 décadas una situación de inseguridad muy alta, con alto índice de extorsiones, secuestros, homicidios, desaparición de personas y obviamente lo que conocemos como robo urbano. Y eso está detonando que todas las personas hoy busquen la autoprotección, y eso lleva a que muchos sí tengan armas ilegales en sus casas para proteger a sus familias. Hay más armas, por supuesto. Y lamentablemente vivimos en un país que, bueno, yo creo que no te tendría que decir mucho de esto, pero sabemos que México hoy lamentablemente todavía tiene muchísima corrupción, y eso permite que la delincuencia ande por las calles haciendo de las suyas. ¿No quieres que haya armas? Cierra las fábricas. Eso sería tan sencillo. Pero tú y yo sabemos que eso es un gran negocio para los países, para las fábricas, y obviamente la muerte y las guerras es negocio.
Big business, selling and buying guns on both sides of the border. Seemingly a runaway train the U.S. government can't seem to get a handle on, nor seems to have time for the advice of scholars like Dr. Topher McDougal. For example, his study came out in 2013, and yet to date, he says not one government or policy person has contacted him and his team to discuss or possibly consider their findings or recommendations for slowing the flow of guns from the U.S. to Mexico.
Mexico is one of our largest trading partners. So purely from the basis of trade and the promotion of economic growth, we have a strong stake in Mexico's continued economic stability. From a humanitarian standpoint, I think that there's a very strong argument to say that we need to be part of a prevention effort here before things get to crisis proportions. And I say that in full knowledge that anywhere from 130 to 200,000 people have already been killed in this conflict since 2006. So if it's not a crisis already, it certainly could spiral quickly into one.